Well, guess what? The Middle East has become the hornet's nest that no one anticipated and definitely no one figured was going to affect global economies like it is today. Look, the reality of where we're at today compared to where we were 5 months ago is that everyone still believed the green energy and alternative energy was going to be the savior of the global energy resource, the new panacea of non fossil fuels. The fact of the matter is, crude oil has become the most important commodity in the last 5 months of any other commodity, better than lithium or anything else. Why is that? Because the shortage of consistent, reliable supply is affecting every single country and their economy and their ability to function. And as much as anyone wants to try to solve the problem in the Middle East, it's only getting worse. It is the new hornet's nest. So if you've ever been around and seen what happens when you stir a hornet's nest, they swarm, but they swarm and attack from different angles. It's exactly what's happening to the Iranian war with the United States. They have learned and they have figured out we don't need a nuclear bomb. We don't need a ballistic missile. What we need is disruption. And disruption can come from the simplest of ingredients. Crude oil and natural gas prices today are sitting at a position ready to skyrocket to the upside. We're sitting at about $86.75 this afternoon. I imagine in the next 10 days we'll be north of $95 a barrel by the end of this month. It's my feeling and belief based on the statistical data, not the rhetoric being said on the news and the media. We have a major dysfunction between what the media is putting out and what the barrels that are available are telling us. That means we have a shortage. It's a supply disruption of a magnificent spread. The spread is probably 10 to 15 million barrels a day. And every solution and every possible remedy has been tried and used. We're about 5 months into this war. It was going to end in a week. It was going to end in 30 days. It was going to end this weekend. And what we've done is we've bought into the fact that this war was going to be over because we dominated, the United States dominated as a military force. What they didn't realize is unless you have the ultimate lethal weapon to stop the hornet's nest from spreading, it's just becoming worse and worse by the day. Now, if you take a look at the Houthis, who are working in conjunction with the Iranian Republican Guard, they said, look, we are part of and a faction of the IRG. And what we want to do is assist them in the delay tactic that's causing massive economic pressure, not only on the United States, but on every other country that burns fossil fuels. So regardless of what's said in the news, it's about physical barrels of oil. How many barrels does my country need? How many barrels do we have to have for refining? What does that final refined product look like in terms of supply downstream? And here's the key. The hornet's nest is spread. Now we have the Houthis bombing Aramco and facilities and other straits and other waterways and tankers. But the real problem that no one really seems to be taking much credit with in terms of disruption in supply is what Ukraine has been doing to Russia. You take all the different attacks by Ukraine on Russian ships and refineries and storage facilities and pipelines and their infrastructure regarding oil and gas production and refining. For the first time that I know of, Russia actually bought an entire tanker load of gasoline going into Russia from India, who refined it for them. That is how bad the disruption has been in Russia, who's one of the leading producers of not only raw crude oil, but also refined product. So instead of distributing and supplying other countries with what they need in terms of oil and supplied refined product, Russia's having to buy it from other countries. No one talks about that. You add that disruption in supply with the continuation of the Strait of Hormuz shut down like it is today, it is not partially open, it's not fully open, it is dysfunctionally open. And that dysfunctionality can add $10 to $30 a barrel, and it will not stop and it will not go away anytime until, my belief, there are boots on the ground inside of Iran. Why does there have to be boots on the ground? Because you don't have anybody in charge. You cut the snake's head off, but 10 more snakes appeared. And now you have a jockeying for position between the IRG and all the other factions deciding who's going to have the ideology going forward, who's going to control the oil, who's going to make the money, who's going to set the new rules of the game. And it's spreading like a wildfire, and no one wants to admit it, but the smoke is everywhere. Crude oil this afternoon, $86 to $87 a barrel. I still believe it's going to be, by the end of the month, close to $95 to $100 a barrel or higher. That's only about 10 trading days left. But I've always said around the 22nd of the month, you find out what the traders really are needing in physical barrels to buy based on the contracts, the firm contracts they have to supply. You as a consumer need to understand, it is not the American oil companies that are controlling the price of oil. They're not controlling the price of your byprocessed and your processed refined goods like gasoline and diesel. That's being set by traders. And the traders are trading crude oil and refined products all over the globe. And the American oil companies are simply appearing to feel the benefit and the gain by a global disruption in supply. If we controlled, American producers controlled the price of crude oil, we'd never let it get below $85 a barrel. So you can't blame the oil companies for having really high prices when you say, but they don't control it when it goes to really low prices and we economically get our tails kicked. Today, the hornet's nest is real. The hornet's nest is their form of a new nuclear option. When they talk about a nuclear option, it's simple. They're saying, what can we do? We have a real high interest in maintaining nuclear capabilities in Iran. They're finding out real quickly what you need to have is what Ukraine has, and that is disruption. You need drones, and you need a continual bombardment of activity that disrupts your adversary. Today's crude oil prices, they're mild compared to where they're headed. Just watch and see.